What happens when an established band known for having two singers suddenly loses their leader? And what if the only singer left is also the drummer? From Autumn to Ashes was a pioneering force in the post-hardcore movement, known for their experimental and complex sound. Headed by two singers, Benjamin Perry on screaming vocals and Francis Mark on clean vocals. Their songs often took several directions as they weaved back and forth between soft emo and brutal hardcore. Noteworthy too was the fact that they had a fun gimmick. Their drummer could belt out choruses all while keeping beat. What started out as a beautiful pandemonium of sound brought on by the two distinct styles eventually became more focused and unified. But not because they had found a better balance of their differing styles. It was because one of the singers just stopped giving a crap, and when he left, he completely ghosted the others in the band. This is the story of From Autumn to Ashes, a band whose nuclear fusion created them and ultimately destroyed them. Two distinct voices, one powerful battle cry. Historic lighthouses, expensive beachfront mansions, abundant geese, thick accents, and darkly emo sad boys. That's what Long Island is all about, or at least that was true in the early 2000s. Taking Back Sunday, Brand New, The Movie Life, and Bayside all came up around the same time here. But while those bands were a mixture of emo, post-punk, and pop rock, From Autumn to Ashes offered up a much darker, harsher, and brutalistic expression of sound. The band formed in 2000 as a trio. Steve Salvio on guitar, Benjamin Perry on screaming duties, and Francis Mark both drumming and providing traditional vocals. Mike Pilato would join later on as the bass player, and Scott Gross joined as the second guitar player. The early months of the band were marked by DIY efforts, playing shows all over the local scene, passing out demos, and cold calling record labels. And the band got by through grit and personal sacrifice. They pooled their money, some $3,000 to $4,000, sold equipment when they needed to, and even donated plasma just to keep their dream going. Their first demo, Sin, Sorrow, and Sadness, initially a self-release, was re-released through Tribunal Records, who had this to say on their Bandcamp page. From Autumn to Ashes sound falls somewhere between sheer brutality and the purest of elegance. Songs can shift from a complex metallic fury to a post-hardcore emo passage in a heartbeat, yet everything meshes perfectly. The band expanded their touring range all along the East Coast and into the Midwest with Saved by Grace and One Shining Moment, and even played at the 2000 Vans Warped Tour. By 2001, their stage presence was locked in and tight, and at a show with Sky Came Falling and Martyr AD, they caught the attention of Carl Severson, the founder of Ferret Music. He offered to sign the band to his label the very next day. Unfortunately, that's when things got a bit too real for founding guitarist Steve Salvio. In an interview with heavy metal and hardcore news website Lambgoat, singer and drummer Francis Mark said, "Steve Salvio was a bit older than us. He was 27, 28 years old. He had a career, like a real job, that he planned on sticking with for the rest of his life. Then we started touring extensively. I quit school and all the other guys quit their jobs. We were like, okay, you gotta quit. We gotta go. And when it came down to it, he just couldn't do it. So he left, and we found this guy who has absolutely nothing else to live for but this band." That other guy was guitarist Brian Deneve, who joined the band just in time for the recording of their debut full-length album. Too Bad You're Beautiful, released on August 14, 2001 to high praise from critics, and would go on to be listed as one of Loudwire magazine's 25 best metalcore albums of all time. A deeply personal record, each song on the album chronicles a romantic relationship of lead screamer Benjamin Perry. The album is full of double bass, bone-fracturing guitar onslaughts, harsh vocal screams, and an extra serving of doom and gloom. Yet it's also soft and moody at times, with acoustic guitars, spoken word tracks, and the slightly off-key, despondent vocals of drummer Francis Mark. Though truly terrifying at times, the album has a ton of intrigue, packed into its nearly 48-minute runtime. After rumors that the band would sign with Island Records, second album The Fiction We Live In was released with Vagrant Records, and produced 3 singles with accompanying music videos. The After Dinner Payback, Lilacs and Lolita, and Milligram Smile all feature prominently on MTV2's Headbangers Ball. On their second outing, the band sounds more cohesive and at times even more uproarious. Yet overall, the band's ferocity is dialed down a notch, with more of Francis Mark's clean vocals, and 3 songs completely devoid of screaming altogether. From Autumn to Ashes grew bigger in name and more widespread, sharing stages with bands like Betrayal, Every Time I Die, and Killswitch Engage. Lead single The After Dinner Payback even featured on the soundtrack to the blockbuster movie Freddy vs. Jason. While the album hinted at a subtle shift in the writing responsibilities and power dynamic within the band, behind the scenes, discomfort, broken promises, self-doubt, and mounting tension followed the band into the studio. The recording of their third album was about to be a tumultuous affair. Things got so bad the band began to wonder, would they even survive the writing process? How do you record an album without the lead singer? 2004 brought a significant amount of challenges to the band, citing psychological hardships and general fatigue brought on by touring, and the rock and roll lifestyle. Guitarist Scott Gross made the decision to leave. Following suit, bassist Mike Pilato resigned. Despite the two departures, From Autumn to Ashes assured fans, it is a very upsetting fact, but it's not grounds for a breakup. Filling in the empty roles were Jonathan Cox on guitar and Josh Newton on bass. Together, the band took to a house in the Catskill Mountains to work on songs for a new album. Abandon Your Friends released on August 30th, 2005. And right away, fans could tell that something was off about the band. It's the kind of album that fans of the more metalcore elements of From Autumn to Ashes would have taken one listen to and immediately discarded. It's really not a metal or hardcore album at all, and sounds a lot more like the rest of the Long Island bands. That is to say, Abandon Your Friends is emo with hardcore flourishes. Following the trend of the last album, there's a lot less Benjamin Perry and a lot more Francis Mark. The screams are there, sure, but most of them are provided by Francis Mark. And though he does a fine enough job, his screams lack the vocal texture, the guttural ruthlessness of Ben Perry's voice. The album would produce just one single, Where Do You Draw the Line? And while the band promoted the new album on tour, fans noticed that they weren't particularly passionate about the new songs. Spanning the East Coast and Midwest regions of the United States and Canada, From Autumn to Ashes continued to play live shows with support from The Bled, Emery, Classic Case, Biology, and Cornbread Compton. By the start of 2006, new guitarist Jonathan Cox had seen enough. He couldn't stand the tension within the band, and so he bailed. Fans were now on high alert. What the hell was going on with FATA? Why were their members always quitting? And would their sound continue to soften? What happens next will answer all of those questions, but it wouldn't be the answer fans wanted to hear. Better live shows, closer friendships. So why did they suddenly implode? After a short 5-month hiatus, From Autumn to Ashes returned in the summer of 2006 with new guitarist Rob Lauritsen to perform at the Bamboozle Festival in New Jersey. Feeling as though they'd sounded better than ever, they accepted an offer from Vagrant Records to play the length of the Vans Warped Tour. The band sounded incredible. They were tighter than ever, and so, with a new wind of enthusiasm, they entered the studio to record their fourth album. There was just one problem. Vocalist Benjamin Perry didn't show up. Finally, the secret they had hid from the public for years came to light. Ben Perry's participation had been minimal to non-existence since the last album, Abandon Your Friends. And now, he had done just that. Abandoned them. In a long-winded post on the band's website, singer Francis Mark broke the news. There has obviously been a monumental change in From Autumn to Ashes, and I am sorry for not explaining it sooner. Wednesday, the 25th of October 2006, around 11 a.m., we were getting ready to pick Ben up from the bus station when we received an email stating that he would not be coming. He turned his phone off so that we could not call him. In the middle of recording the best album of our career, and just 2 weeks before our tour of Australia with The Bled, Ben quite literally abandoned his friends. The post detailed Ben's lack of commitment, going back to the previous album when, after several broken promises to write lyrics, Francis Mark had to ghostwrite all of Perry's lyrics. Not just some of them, all of them. The other members had been careful to protect and hide Ben's failures, and they were prepared to do it again, but Ben chose to ghost them. No heartfelt goodbye, nothing to show his respect and admiration for the band that had done everything possible to cater to him. No, he just stopped talking to them. The band had become accustomed to lineup changes, but now they didn't have a frontman. Was Francis Mark supposed to lead the band and be the drummer, or was this the absolute end of From Autumn to Ashes? From the ashes of death comes new life. The band quickly realized that they had been without Perry all along, or at least for some time now, and so they forged on. Holding a Wolf by the Ears released on April 10, 2007 to widespread critical acclaim. Many of their songs found their way onto popular media of the time, with Daylight Slaving being featured on the soundtrack for Madden NFL 08. Love It or Left It appeared on the soundtrack of the video game ATV Off-Road Fury 4. And the song On the Offensive featured in the movie Saw 4. The album was a return to form, heavier than the last one but still melodic, and would prove to be a fitting farewell for the band. Adding drummer Jeff Gretz to the mix for live shows allowed Francis Mark to fully take the lead of the stage. In late 2007, original bassist Mike Paletta returned, and in January 2008, the band recorded a live album, Live at Looney Tunes, which would hit shelves on June 17, 2008. Yet by the time the live album came out, fans already knew. This was a parting gift. The band was calling that a wrap. Once again acting as the band's mouthpiece, Mark broke the news to fans, stating, "At this point, I feel that we have accomplished everything we could have hoped for with FATA. It doesn't feel much like a breakup. It just feels like the end. It's complete." And while they would reunite briefly in 2014 with Benjamin Perry, it was short-lived, and no new music ever came of it. In 2025, they reunited again and have been playing shows, but this time without Perry. So how will fans remember the melodic hardcore band from Long Island? And what legacy will From Autumn to Ashes leave behind? Sometimes it's not the industry that drives a group to the breaking point. It's just the players in the band. From Autumn to Ashes dropped onto the scene like a grenade in a field of sunflowers. Destructive, yet spectacular. Their darkly poetic and sophisticated songcraft set a new standard in the post-hardcore, metal, and emo scene, showing that you could be berserk and easy on the ear all at once. The magic of their dual stylings became a curse unto itself, as tensions rose that eventually led to their frontmen walking away entirely. Yet despite this, Francis Mark was able to step forward from behind his drum set to show that he was never just a gimmicky sideshow host. No, he could lead just as well as his counterpart, and he could keep that beat going while marching forward toward a proper conclusion. The band's legacy can be distilled down to one perfect album, the album that started it all, and so perfectly captured their vision. Too Bad You're Beautiful remains an absolute masterpiece of melodic hardcore, and there will never be anything like it. Yet the band did give us 3 other albums that were nearly just as good. And most importantly, they overcame their own implosion and stuck the landing with grace. They bowed out when they felt they had given enough. No public feud, no label disaster or tragic downfall. They simply said, "Good night, and thanks for listening," and faded into the flames from which they emerged. From Autumn to Ashes will be remembered for their singing drummer, their roaring vocal onslaughts, and for their resilience through abandonment. Theirs is a story of musical nuclear fusion, and of surviving the blast that followed. So, what was your favorite album? And do you prefer the throaty roar of Benjamin Perry, or the screeching yell of Francis Mark? Or were they best when they shared vocal duties? Comment below to get the conversation going, and subscribe now for more weekly retrospectives of your favorite emo, punk, and hardcore bands. Want to hear about another band that took the dual vocalist approach? Check out our video on Alexis on Fire, the band that was torn apart by a side project, only to reunite stronger than ever.